Welcome to episode 69 of the Beyond Social Media Show. It is October 25, 2014. We're broadcasting live this Saturday, and as you know, I'm David Erickson. You can find me at DErickson on Twitter. My blog is e-strategyblog.com. I'm with my co-host BL Achman, who you can find on Twitter at What's Next. Her blog is what'snextblog.com. She's CEO of maximum-plus.com for all things Google+, and of course she writes for Ad Age as well. We have several segments of the show. We start off with the worst of what happened in online communications. We go into some of the best things that happened. We talk about some shiny new objects that we're enamored with, and then we wrap it up with some numbers you'll want to know. And as usual, BL, you have the floor. What was the worst things that happened last week?
Well, there were quite a number of them, but one of the ones, I wasn't sure where this went, but I put this in the worst because it was just sort of funny. The White House canine Secret Service dog saved the day when the 7th fence jumper of the year jumped over the fence. Who knows why they still have a fence that anybody can jump over, but the canines took the guy down, and so on Twitter, where the news broke first, somebody named McBlondland tweeted, "So we had a fence jumper and the White House dog saved the day. Where's the video? Come on, it's been 4 minutes." Because we are so used to, instant response. And so then the next one that I thought was really hilarious was just saw the video of the White House fence jumper punching the dog that first approached him. So yeah, needle, electric chair, So Twitter was talking about it, and the White House didn't talk about it until basically the next day when they realized that they had a big PR opportunity. So all of a sudden the dogs were on the morning shows and the dogs' pictures were in the paper, and they went like, oh, finally something good that we can talk about. And so they turned that into a PR opportunity, but you would have thought that the video would come from them. That's why I have it in the worst. Like, instead of it coming from, of all places, Fox News, you would have thought that they were prepared. I don't feel like they're prepared at all. Why don't they lock the front door? Why are people walking into the White House, and why are they coming over the fence? I mean...
Yeah, well... There's that. I mean, I agree with you that they should be prepared for that kind of stuff, but I don't know that you can necessarily be prepared to record the video of a fence jumper preparing to punch the dog that takes him down. So.
Excuse me, you don't have cameras everywhere around the White House?
Yeah, probably, but I guess security cameras, I guess.
What?
They're videographers, but he's probably taking pictures somewhere else. That's what my point.
Yeah, that makes me really nervous. That really does. So also on Twitter this week, yet another example of the fact that what goes online stays online, because unfortunately Ted Cruz's deputy chief of staff tweeted, "Before Obamacare, there was never a confirmed case of Ebola in the U.S." And then he, a couple hours later, when everybody started calling him all sorts of names, he said, "I guess they didn't get my sense of humor," and deleted the tweet. Well, my favorite Twitter response to that came from David Waldman, who said, "Before Obamacare, no one had ever been cured of Ebola in the U.S."
Touché. Wow.
Twitter has ultimately got all sides of the story, and yeah, that was a good touche. So a little housekeeping. We are tracking comments today, and we will see your comments on the event page and on Twitter if you use the hashtag BSMediaShow. And we'll be glad to try and answer questions during the show or afterward as it works out. So what did you see this week, Dave?
So what did I see this week? My scroll is a little slow these days, so...
New computer time, or?
Yeah. Okay, here's one. Groupon has launched a new product called Pages. Okay, so you can imagine what they are. They are what they sound like they are. They've got 7 million new listings for merchants, more than 20 million validated ratings and tips from real customers, and they're putting these together to create pages for businesses. So the merchants can claim and personalize their page. They can publish specials on their page. They can receive real-time feedback from visitors. They can engage with customers who leave the feedback. The customers can follow the pages. They can request a deal from the merchant. They can make recommendations. They can become verified Groupon customers to serve as a local expert. But I'm like, great, yet another page for local businesses that have to deal with, right? You've got Yelp, you've got everything. So here's another one that comes into the floor. So I'm like, I think people should just sort of wait and see how visible these pages become in search, how active they become before you start worrying about it. But just another thing, you know. So we'll have an example, a link to the example in the show notes. But there you go. That's sort of.
It is incredible, really. I mean, there's just so much. You know, this is good news for the companies who do tracking of social media. But I mean, there is a limit to how much time people can really spend keeping up all these pages, and they're not intuitively designed for the most part. The other thing that happened this week was that LinkedIn gave you the opportunity to have a big picture on your profile page, and of course it has different dimensions than the big picture on your Facebook page or your Google Plus page or any other page where you have a big picture, and you know, like, it's exhausting. It really is. It's exhausting. And Facebook also launched an anonymous, this one's so weird to me, anonymous iOS app called Rooms, which is kind of its imitation of Google Plus Communities and a nod to old-time anonymous chat rooms. So I just don't understand it. It allows you to create a forum based on interest. You can share that with other people. It's an increasingly crowded field of anonymous and pseudonym-only sharing, and so they called theirs Rooms, and they designed it like old-school chat rooms where you could just go in, but it's a standalone account. It doesn't require a Facebook account or the use of any identifiable information to participate. It's you know, virtual spaces that were anonymous thrived in the early days of the internet, and the room you can create or get involved in, you can have a stream of photos, text, video, and then you have, you know, the one who creates it has total control over it, and just to show how much they're copying Google Plus, there's a Google Plus-ish red plus at the bottom. Go figure. And as unoriginal as it is, it's got a lot of use cases because, like the chat rooms that they're copying, you could have a family-only room or a community room for your neighborhood. But if you haven't been able to download it, don't worry, nobody can. And Facebook knows the problem. They said they're trying to get it sorted out, and they said that it intentionally has no Facebook branding and doesn't require a Facebook account to operate, although Facebook encourages you, of course, to hand over your email in order to restore your account. And it was designed by Facebook's product manager, whose name is Josh Miller, and he wants it to be a chat room platform like WordPress or Tumblr are platforms for websites. And he says that if it's successful, it'll be invisible and operating in the background. So, okay, then there's the question of security, bullying, porn on an anonymous app. And he says, well, it has moderation tools like the ability to review posts before they're published or set an 18 or over age limit, and you can flag inappropriate content, and then a human will look at it. Why?
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot going on there that can fail, and honestly I don't want anonymity on Facebook. I've talked about this before. One thing I like about Facebook is there is your comments are your identity is attached to your comments, so you own your comments.
Completely agree with that. You know, I mean, that's why I have it in the worst category, because I really just don't think that it was a good move. And do you have another one that you wanted to?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Absolutely. So Edmunds.com they had a hilarious and true ad about the ridiculous absurdity of haggling for your car. And it was comparing, it was like, you don't haggle for your groceries, why would you do it for your car? That was the ad. And they pulled it because of dealer backlash. So Jeff, this is from a PR Daily article. Jeff Weiler, a CEO of the Cincinnati-based Weiler Group of dealerships, told Ad Age he was insulted by the ads, the dealer was. For 41 years, this is a quote, for 41 years, the Jeff Weiler automotive family has been committed to practicing business at the highest levels of integrity, he said. Negotiating prices on cars has always been expected by the customer, or by the consumer, and having it referred to as haggling by a company that I am a customer of is insulting. So it worked. Edmund pulled their ads. Our digital videos illustrating the absurdity of haggling missed the mark. Some of our partner dealers were deeply insulted, expressing that our attempt at humor reinforced outdated stereotypes. That was obviously never our bullshit. It was your intent, and it was true. And nobody likes to haggle. I mean, okay, there might be a handful of people who like to haggle. Very few people like to haggle. Buying a car and negotiating a price is one of the most painful experiences any consumer can have.
Sounds to me like they need to grow a set, you know? I mean, they should have stood by it. It was really good.
Yep.
And they didn't, you know, they were easily intimidated by a little bit of criticism. Got to get tougher than that.
Well, clearly their dealer business partners are an important part of their business. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't have backed down. But.
Well, then why didn't they think of that when they made the ad? If they were afraid that that was going to happen, which certainly wouldn't take much to think of.
Yeah.
So, what happened good in Minnesota?
So yeah, this is a Minnesota company offers 3D printed urns. This is from an article from our local tech columnist Julio Ojeda Zapata. There's a company in Eden Prairie, Minnesota called Foreverance.com, and they are offering custom 3D printed urns shaped like objects that were important to the deceased, like a sports car or a guitar. And they're made out of ceramic material that's intended to look and feel more appealing than the more common 3D printed plastic. So there's, the article has an example of a piano-shaped urn, dancing shoes, BL. They've got the Devo hats that I always thought of as pot heads because they look like a planted pot put on their head, and I thought it was a drug reference from Devo, so I always thought they were pot heads. But anyway, the printing process is complex. It's involving the better part of a day with a commercial-grade 3D printer. And then there's many hours of touch-up work on the thing, so it doesn't come cheap. The urns run in the thousands of dollars, is sold through funeral homes. But Foreverance's first and most famous, I already mentioned it, urn was shaped like the Energy Dome. Apparently, that's what the hats are called. Circulated and worn by the rock band Devo. And Foreverance came up with the idea when hearing that Devo co-founder Bob Casale had passed away and learning that he wanted to be cremated, so they created these Energy Dome urns and sent them to the Castle families and ended up making them too. So a very good PR move by them as well. But you know, Minnesota really is sort of a hotbed of 3D printing companies too. We've got quite a growing industry here, but this was a very clever use of it.
I have to do a shout out to Gail Rubin, who goes by the moniker Doyenne of Death, and I believe her website is called agooddeath.com, and she's saying, why have your funeral after you die? Why not have your funeral while you're alive so that everybody can celebrate your life and you can know about it? So, and she talks about being like, you know, death is like a subject people don't talk about. She talks about, you know, have a good death and plan it yourself and have fun with it. And, you know, I think death, I've always thought that death was a kind of a big industry. I mean, it's sort of, a lot of companies overlook them as potential clients, but, you know, everybody's got to use that product or something. So I came up with something that I didn't put this in apps because it's sort of a change in approach to food, and it's called Sonic Seasoning, and British Airways is matching food and sound that's supposed to make your food taste better, because apparently a study at Oxford said that food, you lose 30% of your taste ability when you're in a high altitude. So British Airways is matching on its long flights, on its big, overseas flights. Their in-flight meals are matched with specific music tracks in November, and so they're based on the study that what you eat can affect your taste buds, and their aim is to bring out the flavor in the food. So they have a menu, they call it the Soundbite menu, and it's on the Rock and Pop audio channel. It's got a 13-track playlist, and it's called Sonic Seasoning, and the professor is Charles Spence, and he found that music can make food appear up to 10% more salty or more sweet. So British Airways has a chef whose name is Mark Tazioli, and he added this to his list of considerations, including taste being altered in altitude, sorry. And so the highlights include Paolo Nutini with your smoked salmon, because the reasoning is Scottish artists enhance the provenance of Scottish food, and Placido Domingo's Nissan Dorma, which should bring out the bittersweet notes in your coffee. And they have British music paired with British food, and high tones they find boost the sweet flavors of pudding, and tenors low tones suit the bitterness of coffee. And the professor says in the coming months and years we're going to see far more of this matching of music and sound to what we eat and drink, and it's a really exciting and innovative development. So who knows? I mean, is that going to make us eat food that we don't like? I mean, who likes airline food? Who cares what you play when it's when you're eating it? It's just fascinating.
Do they have the playlist online?
Yeah, they do actually, and on the British Airways, in the British Airways magazine, which we'll have a link to in the play notes, there's a link to the music. Isn't that funny?
That's great. They should do a Sonic recipe book with a playlist and video showing how to make the
your dinner parties, right? I mean, when you're having people over, you're having a party, and you want everybody to be happy. You have certain kind of food and music. Yeah, I think it's kind of fascinating idea. So
I've got a music-related one that's pretty cool too. So the band Primus has just released on October 21st released their latest album, which was like 16 years in the making with the original members. And it is called Primus and the Chocolate Factory with a fungi ensemble. So it is a cover of the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory soundtrack, and it's their version of it. They're releasing versions of the album on vinyl, and 5 lucky fans who buy the vinyl versions will get a gold-colored album and free Primus concert tickets for life. So, like the movie, there's the gold leaf covering of the chocolate bars that people win a tour of the Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory. They're giving away free concert tickets for life. There's a version of their version of Pure Imagination is on SoundCloud. We'll have a link to that. Les Claypool, the band's bassist and lead vocalist, told Rolling Stone why they covered the soundtrack. We need to make sure that kids in the future watch the original Willy Wonka and not the horrendous, horrible remake that came along and left the taste of feces in our mouths.
That's great. You.
That was actually the first movie I ever saw.
Willy Wonka?
Yeah, won tickets to it as a little kid in some coloring contest or something.
That's adorable. Well, this week there was big Google Plus news and Hangout news, and I'll tell you about what I did in Hangouts. But Tiffany, the iconic more than 100-year-old brand, did their first live Hangout on air, and it was attended by nearly 2,000 people live, and thousands more have watched the video and the replay. And what they did was were launching a new line of jewelry by their new design director, and it's a beautiful line of jewelry. And they used the Showcase app, which is the app that Google created that makes Hangouts shoppable. But like so many things that Google creates, it also makes Hangouts complicated. And so what happens when you use the Showcase is that you're able to have live links that will lead people to to links so that people could actually look at the jewelry, buy the jewelry during the Hangout. What they could not do is they could not interact live during the Hangout, and that is what distinguishes Hangouts from every other video platform, is that you can yell at the TV and the TV can answer you back, basically. And so they did not have interaction because you can't use Google's Q&A app and the Showcase app at the same time. And the third-party app that we're using, which is Comment Tracker, you can't use with anything that is one of those either. So the whole interactivity, the whole thing that makes it something that is different from anything else was gone. But still, yay, a huge brand did a Hangout. They took a half-page ad in the New York Times the day before. They really put their necks out on it, and it was on their website. And how this all happened was that a Google team went there, and Google set it up for them, as they've done for NASA and the New York Times and other big brands. They provided a crew with lights and mics, the whole 9 yards. So what you ended up with was a video that looked like a TV show, which, again, is not what Hangouts are all about. Hangouts are more spontaneous. Hangouts are more interactive. So the positives to me were they had excellent light and sound, multiple cameras, switching back and forth and doing close-ups and long shots in the studio were like traditional TV, and the guests, Coco Rocha and Amy Song, they had good lighting and clear sound, and it was quite apparent that they had professional help. The other really good part of it is, wow, the jewelry's gorgeous. And, the negatives were the Showcase app, which I just explained, just took the interactivity out of it. And the other thing that happened is that they never used lower thirds, which are the name tags that you see on people's video during. I don't have mine up today because we're using Comment Tracker, and I don't find they're working together very well. They're not playing well together. But lower thirds let you know who's talking, because we don't all know Coco Roca and whoever else was in that, and when they're talking, it's like, who is that? So all in all, giant step forward for the adoption of Hangouts by big brands, and I congratulate them as a Google Plus coach and a Hangout event producer, and I welcome other big brands into the Hangout platform, and I just think that was absolutely stunning to see.
Yeah, it looked very nice. I mean, it looked very highly professional, and it is what you would expect that a big brand would do, using the format more closely aligned to something they're comfortable with, which is TV, right? The talk show format. So it doesn't surprise me that they didn't want to do all the interactive elements of Google Hangouts, but for their first attempt anyway.
Well, that's what I was thinking, that, okay, this was the first one. They didn't want to take any kind of chances with any kind of anything, and, they got 2,000 people watching. That should tell them that there is interest, and I think the next time out. And, well, I had feedback about this during the event that I did, and I had the social media manager of NASA, John Yembrick, and Sona Patel, who's the social media editor of the New York Times, in an event this week about why you need to add Hangouts to your digital strategy that was sponsored by PRSA as part of Communications Week. And so I asked both of them for their top advice to others who are thinking about Hangouts, and they both said that Google had come and had set up their Hangouts, and that they looked very much like TV, and that they were very concerned initially with the production value. So John Yembrick's top advice was, don't let the production values overwhelm you going forward. They're not going to be so produced, and pointing out, which is really critical, you have to have good connectivity, you have to be hardwired, you have to have good mics, but more importantly than anything else, you have to have content that people want to see. And he said, and I couldn't agree more, I quote, a lot of HOAs are an hour long and they put me to sleep. And he said they always try to engage with visuals, and he wants people to not be intimidated by the technology, to understand that people watching will be okay. If you make a mistake, that if something goes wrong, they'll go, okay, we understand this is new. And I agree with that. I mean, I think we've come a long way in our use of Hangouts here from where we started in episode, a year ago. And then Sona Patel's advice was, don't just do a Hangout to do a Hangout. Think about what you want to achieve. And she said to think of them, and this is clearly true, think of them as appointment viewing, that the vast majority of people really don't watch the Hangout live because most of them are on during the day. People are at work. When do they have time? And so most people go and watch after the fact. And so think of it as something that people are going to set aside time to view. And you have to make sure that it's just as interesting to watch the replay as it was to watch live. Of course, that, watching the replay eliminates the interactivity, but 2,000 people watching, that's a lot of interactivity. And, she said, figure out the logistics in advance. Everybody who's involved needs to know what they need to know and what they need to do, and you should do your sound check, and you should make sure that everybody who's involved has had the experience of being inside a Hangout and knows how to get in and knows how to find the invitation and has good sound and that you've tested it. The logistics, you should have a clipboard and a checklist. And then what she said, which is so crucial, is don't forget about promotion. Don't forget that you have to promote it before, during, and after your event. And so at the Times, obviously they have the Times that they can promote it with in their website, but they promote on Twitter, on Pinterest, on YouTube, and that's what I did with this event. It was everywhere. And that is indeed what you need to do. So, the key thing is like, Hangouts aren't a strategy, Google Plus isn't a strategy, Twitter is not a strategy. When you put all these things together and you have these tools and tactics that you can use together, you have something pretty spectacular.
Yeah, it was very, very well done too. I mean, the content is the key, and your Hangout, the Hangout that with Tiffany's content was compelling. So as long as that's in there, people forgive a lot of things. But audio is a key one too. If it's horrible to listen to, it's horrible to listen to, and it's a tough barrier to overcome. Let's get on with the shiny new stuff.
Okay.
I've got one quick one. Sway. Have you used Sway at all?
I have not. What's that?
Sway is a content discovery tool. It's swayy.co. It connects with your Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn accounts, and it makes content recommendations based on your community or on topics that you've selected. And you can update from the tool, so it's for social sharing. So the 80-20 rule: you should share 80% of other people's content, 20% of your own content. This is sort of helps with that, helps you discover content that your audience is likely interested in, and provides the tools for you to sharing it. Also provides some analytics on your sharing habits after you use the tool. So it's pretty cool. Is
it free? Is it free?
It is, yes.
I have to take a look. I found a robotic mouse that it's to give lazy indoor cats a little exercise, and they want it to be the first robotic cat toy and improve the life of cooped up cats. And it uses an infrared LED light, which they go crazy about, with a sensor, and it measures the overall level of ambient infrared light surrounding the device. So if the mouse is near an object, light will be reflected and activate the device, and directional sensors allow the mouser to interact with and respond to a cat, and it's apparently sophisticated enough to know the difference between running, stalking, and pouncing. So I gotta have one of these for the Knownster. I mean, he is the laziest. You have not met a lazier creature. So I also found something I really think is terrific, and I hope it's expanded, and it's called the new NuSchool, and it's an online tool to help designers calculate what they should charge, and it has a pricing school, and it takes into account how interesting you find the project, and it ranges from boring to dream project, and whether you're going to hate yourself a little for doing it, or if it's going to be life-changing for you, and depending on the way you answer, they suggest what you should charge, and I found that really fascinating. And I just got to tell you one more, because every bathroom needs one. It's a little miniature golf mat that you use while you're on the can, and they're $20 at Walmart, but you could get them for $9.99 on eBay.
I am glad I haven't taken up golf yet.
Miniature golf. This is miniature golf.
Yeah.
Perfect Christmas gift. So, do you have any more that you want to tell us about?
I don't. Let's just do the numbers.
Okay, daily numbers coming up.
So, Americans' views of business and industries. This is from Gallup. Respondents rated their overall views as very positive, somewhat positive, neutral, somewhat negative, or very negative. The top 3 industries in terms of positive perception of them are the restaurant industry. 67% of Americans perceive the restaurant industry in a positive light. Computer industry, not surprising there, that's 66%. Farming and agriculture, again, we love our farmers. 60% view the farming and agriculture industry as positive. At the lower end, not surprisingly either, the federal government. 23% have a positive view of the federal government. 59% have a negative view of the government, totally negative view of the government. Oil and gas industry, only 29% view that positively, 56% view it negatively. The legal field, 31% view it positively, 40% view it negatively. And public relations and advertising. Here it hits home. 37% view public relations and advertising industries as positive, and 33% view it negatively. 29% have a neutral view of it. So I've always said
this. Ways to go.
Public relations industry needs a PR firm.
It really does, and it pretty much has for a very long time. You know, I'm not surprised at those numbers, I have to say. So that brings us to the end of episode 69 of the Beyond Social Media Show. I'm BL Achman. You'll find me on Twitter as @What'sNext. My blog is What's Next Blog, and my company is maximum-plus.com, producing live events on Google Plus and coaching companies on how to use Google Plus for their digital strategy. And of course, you'll find me on Google Plus, and you will find Dave at eStrategyBlog.com, eStrategyTV. And you'll find him on Twitter as D. Erickson, and of course on Google+. And we're on Google+ as Beyond Social Media Show. And we timestamp the video and include a playlist on our blog, which is BeyondSocialMediaShowBlog.com. And so all of that will be there shortly. And we'll be back next Saturday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern for episode 70 of the Beyond Social Media Show. So thank you so much for watching.
Thanks for watching.